Hey guys, Kathleen Spizzato. Very excited today. I was texted this morning when I was on appointments that our Board of Finance chair, our Board of Ed chair, and our First Selectwoman were going to be on WINY talking about our budget. We have a budget meeting coming up this evening for anybody in the town of Pomfret. So I did not get to listen to this in real time. This is my first time listening. So I'm going to push play. I'm on WINY's Facebook right now, and I'm going to play the video and give you my reactions to what is said here. So I'm very excited about this. I think it should be very interesting, seeing how all three of these people have been very dishonest with me personally and with the town. So let's see what they had to say on WINY this morning and what we think about it.
Welcome to the second hour of the WINY talk show. Call 928-1350 to be heard. Telephone lines are open, so call now.
I wish I could have called it in real time. I really do. Can't say they'd answer my questions because they didn't answer the written ones that they've had 3 weeks to look back and answer. But
good morning and welcome to the second hour of the WINY talk show. I'm your host, John Mahan, and we have our guest from the town of Pomfret on with us this morning. We have First Selectman Maureen Nicholson. We have Board of Education Chair Lee Grossman, and we also have Board of Finance Chair Noreen Reingold. How are you all doing this morning?
Great.
Good. Doing great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. A big day in Pomfret. We have our public hearing on the budget coming up this evening.
public hearing this
correct?
evening.
Right, it's 6:30 at the Pomfret Community School.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what, please go ahead.
Yeah, Noreen, give us the lay of the land for the public hearing, which is held by the Board of Finance.
Absolutely.
What we're going to do is I'll first open the meeting. I'll be the moderator for the night. And then we'll have the presentations by Maureen of the town budget and by Mike Cummings, who's the school superintendent for the Board of Education budget. And once that's done, we open the floor up to questions and comments.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the budget proposal this year. And of course, public hearing is the opportunity for people to weigh in. Board of Finance afterward will consider what people say and decide, hey, do we want to make any changes? Do we not want to make any changes?
Right.
What do we do next to push this forward to town meeting? But let's start with what's currently.
So interesting. They're going to have this meeting this evening, and it's supposed to be an open forum. It's supposed to be for the citizens to ask their questions, get their answers before they vote on the budget. But that is not being allowed, guys. Let me tell you, they're not taking into consideration or answering the questions. They are cherry picking. I have proof of that. We have a very well thought out letter that both Martha, Emilio, and myself sent in to the Board of Finance several weeks ago, not an hour before their meeting, like Patrick tried to say. It was sent in the morning, and we got no response. And we were, shouldn't say no response. The Board of Finance decided that the Board of Selectmen should address it. The Board of Selectmen skipped the budget talk altogether on the next meeting. And the meeting after that, they brought up the letter, but very discreetly, first trying not to name who the letter was from or what the letter was about. And they never answered the questions. And we never heard from the Board of Selectmen on these questions. So don't let them fool you when they say this is open forum to the public, because it's really not. They're really not taking things into consideration behind closed doors either. So let's get that all out there.
Being proposed, what do the numbers look like for general government and for Board of Education?
Oh, okay. I thought you were asking Maureen. Right now for the Board of Education, the budget is $12,160,903. And that's an increase from last year of 3.73%.
Gotcha.
And for the general government, the total amount is $3,576,769. And that's an increase of 4.05% over last year.
So if a taxpayer in Pomfret were to ask, okay, the budgets are going up, what are the main drivers? What would your response be to that?
The main drivers. Do you want to go ahead?
She would defer to the.
Okay. We could start on either the school side or the general government side.
Let's hear it, Lee.
The big driver on the school side is special ed.
Yeah.
We have Connecticut is great on special ed and terrible about funding it. It really falls to the towns. We had this year a number of very high needs kids move in after the budget passed, and blew up this year's budget is going to have a huge effect on next year's budget. So these are kids who need services, but it's meant cuts elsewhere across the board. We're cutting 2 teaching positions, which I hate to do, but something has to give. And it's really about kids moving in who need services and are absolutely entitled to those services and not really getting a lot of state support to help with it. So it falls much more on the town budget than any of us would like to see.
The other thing I'd like to point out is, the state funding for the town. 15 years ago was about 35% of our budget. This year, it's about 18 to 20%. So as our expenses increase, our state funding decreases, and it's happening everywhere. It's not just Pomfret, but that puts a bigger tax burden on the taxpayer.
Oh, certainly, yeah. And you know what we're hearing about special education, again, not just Pomfret. This is actually something I know that Pomfret and other towns have been communicating very much with the state legislature. Hey, can we try and get something passed, try and get something amended that will help us out a little bit with our budget when it comes to the special education funding and the ECS funding? I don't know how much fortune so far has come about from those sorts of conversations, but what are you guys hearing? What are you guys feeling so far?
There's more than that. We're pushing hard for it. I was actually we're doing regular meetings with board chairs and superintendents in the local towns, looking at how can we help each other, how can we share services, also how can we coordinate in trying to get help from the state. The state news has not been great. About a week ago, we were hearing, well, there's going to be 170 million and that will be helping out this year.
From Ned Lamont,
As of
guys.
yesterday, we're hearing maybe it's 100 to 120 million and probably none of it's going to make it to the Northeast. So I'm hopeful.
So I'm going to stop right there. The hopeful numbers that Lee was quoting from a week ago, were promises out of Ned Lamont's mouth, is what I'm being told. I came to the Board of Ed meeting on Wednesday and let them know, like, what we heard from our town administrator was that Pomfret wasn't getting touched. But Lee seemed to be optimistic that Ned was coming in with something for us. But what I was hearing from town administrator was that was not going to touch Pomfret. So sounds like now he's kind of come around to it's not going to touch Pomfret, which is what I thought on Wednesday and previous. But for whatever reason, there was some belief that Ned was going to come through with some funding in these little towns out here, and that is not going to be the case from what it looks like today.
The first news was the more accurate. I certainly hope people are still calling legislature. I mean, I know our legislators are pushing hard, but I don't think the news is great on that end. I think we'll get a little bit of help next year. It's still mostly going to fall on the towns.
And that certainly is some disappointing news for Northeast Connecticut, because there was a lot of hope that this might be the year that something different was going to happen. And I mean, fingers crossed, we'll still have some luck. But I did hear the same things from when Barney Sinay, the mayor of Putnam, came on during the last hour. We were sort of chatting during the commercial breaks, and he was saying the same thing. It's not looking quite as optimistic as it was just a couple weeks ago, which is really disappointing on news for the Northeast corner. You know, that being said, what is the impact on the mill rate with the budget as it's currently proposed?
Right now, it's, I believe, 1.41%. I'm sorry, 1.41 mils.
1.41 mils. And that is with the expenditure of some funding from, what was it, undesignated?
Undesignated fund.
Unassigned.
How much from that?
$250.
$250,000. And compared to most years in Pomfret, is that a typical number? Is it higher or lower than usual? I don't know what Pomfret does in a typical year. Towns can be so different when it comes to that.
In the past, the Board of Finance has approved, well, last year, it was $450,000.
Right.
So less this year, yeah.
Yeah, so it's less this year. I think that's part and due to the Board of Finance is very cognizant of the fact that we have some serious projects coming up that are reimbursement projects. They're covered 100%, but we have to reimburse, pay for the work that's being done and then be reimbursed. So there will be a cash flow situation. So we've got the Taft Pond Road Bridge, we've got the airline project and future projects coming up.
Also, that's supposed to be our rainy day emergency fund. And so when things happen, we want to be able to have a sufficient amount and not use up that fund just to lower the mill rate.
So the auditor recommends
2 months of expenses,
18%.
about 16.
Yeah.
I know too that during budget season, every town, and I'm sure Pomfret is no exception, there are certain things that go up and you can't avoid that. No town can avoid that. But every town is always very busy combing through the budget saying, hey, how can we find some savings here and there? Can we go with a different venue for this particular service? Can we find ways to, even if it's just nickel and diming up some lines here and some lines there, it ends up adding up. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the process when it comes to Pomfret's frugality. I know that people are combing through the budget and saying, let's make sure that this is a zero waste sort of a budget, right?
I'll handle that for the board.
I'll just say that
Hold on. They're not combing through the budget in Pomfret. Let me tell you, let's make this very clear. They are not combing through this budget in Pomfret. They have not. I'm sorry. Look at the roads. Like, look at how much they're budgeting for the roads. I'm going to post my letter for people to see that we sent to the Board of Finance. Look at those questions. I mean, they're not combing through anything, guys. Like, we're spending $5,500 on social media. And if you look at the past year, what they've been posting on social media is just sharing events from our rec mostly and a few other random things. They're not even sharing our town meetings and boards and commission meetings. They just started because I've been calling this out for the past month on social media. And since I went to one of the budget workshops and asked, why are we spending $5,500 on this? Why don't we cut that? Why isn't there someone at the town that can help volunteer? I'm a volunteer on my board. So we don't have anybody that can volunteer to share that stuff and help share the meetings. I've been trying to do it for free on my end, but I think the town is wasting money with $5,500 going to something that then they also said when asked, is it increasing our participation? No, they said no. I have the audio of that on my blog. They said it's not increasing any of it. So I'm sorry, if we're in such a tight budget and we're combing through, that'd be one area that I would be reevaluating and getting creative with. But also the roads, look at the roads.
overall, I know that both Maureen as well as Mike, the superintendent, meet with every sort of program department or function and go line by line through their budgets.
Mm-hmm.
And the Board of Finance does the same, not quite to the level that, of course, the other boards do.
That's not 100%
But we're
true.
looking at, what are the big increases? Is there going to be sufficient funds to have like a full recreation department, things like that? And what are the real needs and values that the town has?
So
for education, knowing that there was this huge special ed bump, but also that it is basically a 2-year bump this year and next year, we cut things we would never cut long term. We cut a lot of maintenance. We cut a lot of support for teachers that we would normally never cut, knowing that next year we'll be able to restore that again as kids age out of the system. They basically, the whole thing's driven by special ed and insurance. Everything else is going down.
Listen, I don't like what Lee's saying there. He's saying that we cut things that we know that next year when people age out of systems that we're going to supposedly have money for this, funding for this. I don't think that's the right way to look at it at all. I mean, you just admitted 5 minutes ago in the audio that our budget got blown out the water, yours, because we had some special needs kids move into the town after the budget had been done. So, I mean, those things happen, right? Those are factual things that can happen. So how are you going to bank on next year we can put these things back as people age out of the system? Because you can know that people are going to age out, but you don't know what's coming in. So it's not safe to say that we know next year we're going to get some of this stuff back. It's just not the way that we can plan.
In our budget.
And also I have to say that there have been, as for the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education and the Board of Finance, numerous budget meetings and workshops where citizens could come in and ask questions, give us their opinions. We had very little public participation, unfortunately.
Maureen, that's not true.
With the Board of Selectmen, I put together a binder of all the requests. I've done that for years. So that the other selectmen can review what all the requests are. And then, I go through the budget, I propose a budget, take some comments from the selectmen or from other folks, and then refine it. And I've refined it about 4 times. I have a list of items like are over $500. I mean, the budget is so tight, we're talking about line items over $500. And I don't think there's anything in the budget that's increased over $30,000.
Gotcha.
And we've held, this concerns me a great deal. We've held the capital non-recurring budget flat for the 2nd year in a row. And that's all of our road projects and capital projects. And, it's becoming more and more expensive to maintain our infrastructure, and particularly this year everybody put their budget together before we've got these fuel increases.
And the
it's,
snowstorms.
yeah,
So that's crazy statements by Maureen. She's saying that basically she's put together this binder and looked at all the questions and tried 4 times to come up with this that she shared with the selectmen. I'm going to ask Martha about that because I don't think Martha's been shared anything 4 times, to be honest. And Martha's questions as a selectman and a citizen, along with me as a citizen and as someone on the Board of Ed, we had very valid questions that the selectmen, not Martha, but the other 2 refused to even bring up in public, like at their meeting, guys. They skipped talking about it at their meeting, the first meeting. The second meeting, they brought it up, but they did not say who the letter was from or what the contents of the letter were. When Martha asked them to read the letter so she could know what this letter was about that they were talking about almost secretly, they were like, oh, you wrote the letter. It's the letter from you and Miss Pizzato. Okay, then why didn't you just say that in the beginning? And why didn't they discuss the letter? There was questions in there, and all they said was this was going back to the Board of Finance, that the Board of Finance was going to be answering these questions, and they think they already handled it, and they know that's a lie. So to come on the radio right now and pretend like you are answering citizens' questions and that you haven't had participation, that has been very low, is a blatant freaking lie. You guys have participation, you have people asking valid questions, and you are looking the other way. Stop lying to the public, guys. Hard stop. Stop lying to the public, okay? Just say you don't want to answer questions or we're not open-minded. Just say the truth, but don't pretend on the radio that you're open to questions when you have questions that you refuse to answer.
and there'll be increases in asphalt and materials for fixing roads due to the increase.
Guys, go look at Bradley Road. Look how much money
fuel
Bradley
oil.
Road's got this year,
How is
last year,
how is
and when it was
Pomfret, by the
redone,
way,
okay?
looking for the
Homework.
current fiscal year when it comes to the snow budget and other things? I know that we're getting toward the end of the current fiscal year and we had an unusually harsh winter, at least compared to the past few years. How is Pomfret looking for that?
We did exceed our proposed budget significantly, and actually that was one of the items that the Board of Finance went to, and hoping, they're very optimistic that we won't have another winter like this, so that was reduced.
I love
but
how
it's
our
always
boards can all predict
it's
the
always
future,
a risk
by the way.
to try to predict what that's going to be. And the other thing is, for some reason, these storms happen to come on the weekends.
Yeah.
So you're paying time and a half overtime, so that increases the cost as well.
Yeah, we've been in a budget freeze from Board of Ed because of these extra special ed costs this year. Like I said, it blew up the budget this year. We're hopeful whether we make our budget or have to go back to the town is going to depend on what level the state reimburses us for the excess cost grant. If they reimburse it in full like they did last year, I think we would be okay. If they reimbursed at 70%, like they're talking about this year so far, we would probably have to go back to the town just because of these extra costs that came in.
I'm going to be real.
After
At
the
our
budget
meeting,
was
we
passed.
talked about
And,
worst case and best case.
nobody plans
Every case we
how
were
they
going back to
move
the
based
town this
on
year.
what the
At least at our Board
where
of
the
Ed
school
meeting is what
budget
we were
is.
talking
You
about.
move in when you move into town. These kids, again, are completely entitled to all the services they're getting, but we can't budget for kids who don't live in the town
Right.
when we're making the budget.
Right, it's unpredictable. Now, for the budget that's coming up for the next fiscal year that we're talking about at the public hearing tonight, I always try and anticipate the sorts of questions you guys might get. And you never know what kind of questions will come in, but let's say somebody were to ask the question, I'm not sure about this budget. What happens if I vote no? Let's say that this budget doesn't pass as proposed and ends up going back to the drawing board. And you know, there might not even have to be a no vote if there's a lot of concerns that are raised this evening. You know, the Board of Finance might take a look at the budget again and say, hey, we got to make some changes.
I don't think we'll get too many people
So
this
for
evening.
people who are wondering whether or not this is a budget they want to support, what would you say is the likely outcome if the word from the people is, hey, we're not sure about this budget? Where would be some of the first places that would be cut from? Do you think that could be commented on at this time? What would be on the chopping block, so to speak? What I think people should know if they for whatever reason choose not to support the budget, what does that mean in terms of the consequences?
I think that what we've been looking at is
So I'm going to say that's a really good question. We are actually told we're supposed to cut $80,000 on the Board of Education budget. But at our last meeting, they told us that we were going to vote on those cuts after the budget gets voted in. So after the town approves the budget, then we will figure out and come back together and vote on where the 80,000 is coming. So you guys aren't going to know where the $80,000 of cuts are coming on the Board of Ed line by line, because that's going to come after, and we have to vote after on where that's coming. So it's interesting to hear what they're going to say about where the cuts are probably going to come, because that's something that for the Board of Ed, at least, we're not even allowed to be discussing and voting on until after the town approves the budget.
The different departments, both in education and in the general government, really need. And then there are some things that are valuable because people participate in them, but they're not necessarily something that the town has to have.
Yeah.
So those are the things we start to look at. And also we look at if there's been a big jump in the expenses from last year to the proposed budget, what's causing that?
We should look at that
There's
already.
very little
But
we can do about the revenue coming in.
Yeah.
But I'd say that, we put the budget together and think about what's Pomfret like? What do people in Pomfret value?
Right.
And we consider what they value is where they'll put their money. And hopefully that will be on our budgets.
Absolutely.
I don't know, Lee, if you had to go back to your budget.
We have pretty much cut all of the things that we have control over, that we have discretion over. If we have further cuts beyond this, we've already cut 2 teaching positions. It's going to mean larger class size. It's going to mean fewer teachers, and I'd hate to see that, but there's literally
I'm going to
nothing
stop
else
him
we
right
can cut
there.
legally.
So it does mean they cut 2 teaching positions. That is true. But they did not cut 2 teachers. One of the teachers, it's a kindergarten teacher. They did cut a kindergarten class. So we're going to have 1 kindergarten class next year. But our survey shows, and our enrollment is now showing, that we have less kindergarten kids than we have had in the past. So although the class might be a little larger than average, it's not going to be crazy large compared to what you would think cutting a whole class out. We have lower kindergarten numbers than years previous. So that's that, and that's why they decided that. But they didn't cut a teacher. They just had some retiring, and they've shifted people around. So no one got fired or let go. The other one I was told was a special needs teacher, and they're looking at that person for a program that they've since asked for grant funding on, and are waiting for the results of that. And if that comes through, that person would also be stepping into that role. So there are definitely a few things at play here that aren't face value for what's being said to the public. I don't like that personally, especially as a parent, but also as a board member. I feel like you as the public should know all of this information. So it's not that we're cutting things and firing people or making classes any bigger than they should be. They're well within the range that they should be still. And I did clarify that at the last meeting. You can hear that on the video that they've uploaded to the website. I asked the question about the kindergarten enrollment and how that was looking, and they are on track to be A-okay
At this point, so.
Maureen, for the general government side, if you guys had to go back to the drawing board, what would that mean?
In the general government budget, there's so many small line items that there's no real way to come up with a significant amount of money. I mean, even reducing personnel, we've got so many part-time people. That wouldn't do it. We'd have to probably go to capital and non-reoccurring and trim that budget, which really would leave us in a situation where not repairing a road or not doing something this year, it's going to cost us more.
Sorry, capital non-recurring, the roads. If you look year to year, they look like they're recurring for the amount that they're budgeting each year on those roads. So look at Bradley Road, guys. Bradley Road, it was told at a Board of Selectmen meeting that one was recently redone. It's not a very big road, and that one's getting budgeted the most amount of money. So I'm sorry, if you have to go back to those capital non-recurring and cut, I think you should have already done that. I brought that up in a meeting. You can hear from a few meetings ago, but you should have already probably done that. And I hope the town looks at that and says, hey, look at year over year. Why is this road getting budgeted for so much money if this is capital non-recurring? Non-recurring, keyword, non-recurring. But it's reoccurring year after year after year in the budget.
When the road deteriorates and we have to fix it, the repair costs are greater. It's going to cost us more in the long run.
Kicking the can down the road.
It's not kicking
Rarely
a can.
saves money long term.
No one's
In
kicking
fact,
a
it's
can.
usually
You're
the opposite
over budgeting.
situation. Yeah. No, I hear you on that. And again, because we want to make sure that we plug
You guys
the
wouldn't
public
know if
hearing
you don't go to
happening
meetings.
tonight
You don't
at
hear this stuff.
6:30
It's not
at
in the public.
Pomfret Community
It's not
School.
in our
it is?
minutes.
Yes,
Yep. And is it in person and virtual, or just in person?
in person,
Yep.
but there is an email address that's on the town website where people can submit comments to, or in written comments if they want.
So why is this only in person? We have ARPA funds grant funds that we took for virtual meetings. I have sent in a FOIA request for the details on that. I will post them when I get them. But we took funds for virtual meetings. So why is something as big as this not being offered virtually for our entire community to be able to log on and participate in something so important as this budget? That's millions and millions of dollars. Doesn't make any sense, guys. Doesn't make any sense.
Want to drop them off at the town hall?
Oh, excellent.
There is that option. We're always facing this issue where we have a public hearing or we have a workshop. I don't know if you've had public show up at your workshops.
We've had some, but not many.
Yeah, it's like we've had one non-board citizen show up at our budget
One
workshops.
non-board, because I showed up, so I don't count.
the-
I'm on a board now.
My concern is that folks don't have the information that they need to make an informed decision.
They
Do we
not.
have a town meeting scheduled yet in Pomfret? Is there a
No,
date?
we're probably going to schedule that at our next selectmen's meeting. It'll probably be mid-May sometime.
And typically in Pomfret,
Why are
the
we
budget
waiting?
gets approved at a town meeting. There's no anticipated referendum, right? It would be a town meeting approval usually in
I
Pomfret.
have heard that there is some discussion about petitioning to a referendum. There's nothing definitive about that.
Yeah.
We discussed it at our last Board of Selectmen's meeting, and there's a great deal of concern about doing that because after we set the annual town meeting date, and if a petition comes in, then you have 14 days to set a referendum date.
And a referendum is additional costs in a year when we're already at
Yeah.
a very tight budget.
How much does a referendum cost?
Well, I don't know the total cost because I don't know what the constable cost would be or where we held it, but it looks like for the registrars of voters, it would be about $3,000.
Gotcha.
And then finding the place to have it because we can't have it at the community school while school's in session during the weekday. So we would probably have to have it either at a different location or on a weekend. And that is out of the norm for our voters.
Yeah.
But it's doable. I mean, it's just an unfortunate thing because we're trimming our budgets by $5,000 here, $3,000.
Okay, unfortunate things, guys. Referendum. What is a referendum? A referendum is a full day where people can come in and vote on this budget. It's not just going to a town meeting at night and then voting right after the town meeting, is what we traditionally have done. Last year, I almost didn't make it because I was working the concession stands at the baseball field. And when I got out after the game ran late, I rushed over to the school and I was able to cast my vote. And I know you guys heard me complain. They didn't check IDs. They didn't make sure I was a town resident, nothing like that. There were 2 lines squiggling all around the place. People were joking about voting twice. And you scribbled on a piece of paper, check yes, or check no, throw it in the box. Didn't care who you were. See you later. Oh, budget passed. That is how they voted on millions of dollars of money in our town last year. I was disgusted that is how Pomfret votes. Referendum would give a full day, so there's no rushing. Every citizen has the opportunity to come. As long as you are within the vicinity of that day, you can come and cast your vote on the budget. And she just said, she doesn't know the full amount, but it was about $3,000 for the registrars. I'm sorry, most of the local towns around us do that. It is a cost of doing business when you are a business, a multi-million-dollar business with a budget over, $15 million, I think, over $15 million. It's the cost of doing business. When we're talking about cutting costs, we're not talking about that kind of cost. That is an important necessity for running this business. It should be business ran, right? What we're talking about is the $5,500 to share what the rec is already sharing on Facebook. That is where you can cut costs. And you could take that $5,500 and we would happily put it in a referendum so we have more people that are able to vote, because they have talked about and bragged about how they pass these budgets with the minimum amount of people. They've talked about in the past having 10 to 20 people show up to pass a budget. That is unacceptable. I'm sorry. And last year they talked about not doing it well because they weren't anticipating the turnout that they had, which I feel like was like a couple hundred people. That's still horrible when you think about the population of Pomfret. So I'm sorry, a referendum I think is a necessity. I don't see why they're pushing back on it while they're talking about money, while they're doing stupid stuff with money in other places. You can find the money for it and make it happen. And that shows that you care about all residents, not just the 10 or 20 people that you have show up consistently that just push things through and don't look at anything and don't answer questions.
$1,000 there, and then we're going to have, an additional cost that we did not budget for a referendum.
Good morning and welcome back to the WINY Talk Show. I'm your host, John Mahan. We have our guest from the town of Pomfret on with us. First Selectman Maureen Nicholson, Board of Ed Chair Lee Grossman, and also Board of Finance Chair Noreen Reingold. And I just want to put out there, thank you for writing this down for me, Maureen. This is the email address where if for whatever reason you're not able to attend the public hearing tonight, 6:30 p.m. at the Pomfret Community School on the budget, you can email your thoughts, your questions over to pomfretbudgets@gmail.com.
I'm going to forward my letter to that email, guys.
So I want to
Wait for
encourage
it.
everybody to participate.
I'm going to forward my letter to that email. Maybe I'll get a response. I'll report back, but I doubt it. I won't
Another
hold
thing
my
that we
breath.
can talk about that's going on right now in the Pomfret school system, let's talk about the superintendent situation. As I understand it, we have a superintendent who is stepping down, and we're in the search process.
We are in the
So
search
we want you to fill
process.
us in a little bit about what the situation is and what the search process has been like. So
before we listen to Lee spin it the way Lee wants to spin it, let's talk about the superintendent resignation process so far, guys. Okay. So our superintendent let us know that he was going to resign probably almost 2 months ago now. And Lee proceeded to rush out an ad. He asked the full board, hey, I'm going to just send one like we have in the past. Is that fine? I wasn't on the board in the past, so I asked for a copy of it so I could see before I could answer. I needed to be informed, right, before I could answer whether or not that was fine. And also, don't you know, like this is like meeting privately in an email. This isn't in public, but whatever. So he sends that out. I ask for copies. I get a link back that is the ad for this year posted. That's what I got, a response. That's a response. There's nothing. It was just bam, here you go. So I replied and said, thank you, but I still would like to see what we've done in years past. And I got one copy and was told that the rest was going to be at the meeting. We would be talking about it at the meeting, but very rude, very cold, very unprofessional of a chair, especially to a new member on the board. So I just want to put that out there. Fast forward to the meeting, we go to the meeting. He says that everybody just approved. No, I did not approve. Let's be clear. I didn't approve anything. I requested to see more information. So there was that. Then he proceeded to say he was appointing a select personnel search committee. He hand-selected 4 people, himself included, to be in the search committee for the superintendent search. I questioned that. He also said I had spent much time with the attorney figuring out how to work this. Also, this isn't FOIA. You can't FOIA anything. This is private. So I questioned all of that and said I was going to look into it. I didn't feel you could just appoint a committee and not have a discussion, not have a vote, and you're not FOIA-able because, guys, let's be real. I've been able to FOIA some stuff, and it's not turning out to be face value for what they're telling us. So he made that very clear. My alarms were going off. So I looked into it, sent an email the next day. You can't just appoint a committee. It has to be a discussion, has to be a vote. So they called a special meeting. They call a special meeting for a couple days. The special meeting is going to come up, but they advertised that it was a special meeting with other boards included with our board, which wasn't accurate. So I pointed that out. They canceled that meeting and had to start the notice over for a new special meeting. We got on the special meeting, tried to have a discussion, but Lee just tried to push through his personnel search committee that he wanted. It was clear that he already had worked with everybody to have enough people that were going to be in agreement on it, and he pushed through his personnel search committee. These people that he picked, he said he picked because you have some women, you have some men, you have some from both parties. What you don't see on that committee are the ones that have shown up the most, the ones that have children in the school where the superintendent will be working, and who also happen to be male, female, and also both of 2 different parties. I didn't care which one of us got on, but I felt very strongly that one of us should be on it, and he did not care. There was no amount of discussion. This was already solidly picked prior to that, and the special meeting was for a show, just because, I called out the procedure here. So let's hear how we're handling it. Oh, and fast forward to 3 weeks later, I didn't have minutes from the special meeting, so I asked for those. Your minutes are supposed to be out within 7 days, so I had to call that out. The minutes came out. They were called emergency meeting minutes. It wasn't an emergency meeting, guys. It was a special meeting. So I asked for that to be corrected. And when we got our packet for our Board of Ed meeting, which was for last week, I asked, why is there nothing on here for any kind of update on the search committee and how it's going? Like nothing, no executive session, even if they have stuff they didn't want to talk in public. There was nothing about it, and nothing came up in the meeting about the search committee. And on the special meeting, they said they have somebody that could be an interim superintendent, and they didn't share that information, and it's just been crickets since. So kind of questionable there, guys.
Well, I can't talk much about the search process, but I can certainly talk about the current situation. And Mike is wonderful. We hate to see him retire, but the way that we have hired in Pomfret, and this has worked very well for us, is that under Connecticut statutes, a superintendent who is retired from another much larger district can work part-time up to a certain number of days and still collect their pension. It means that we've been able to get superintendents much stronger, much more experienced than we would normally be able to get for a district our size. It's not really a part-time job, but it's a part-time job for somebody like Mike, who's been, superintendent in a district that had 15 buildings and had thousands more kids than we did. But the nature of the job also means that anyone we hire has already retired once, and they're sort of on the clock. And Mike has been absolutely amazing, and I'm thrilled that we were able to get 4 years of his leadership. And before that, Steve was wonderful, and I'm sure whoever we hire will be equally strong. But it does mean that we, just tying it to the budget thing, it means that, among other things, we're hiring a part-time superintendent for on the order of $70,000 rather than a full-time superintendent for close to $300,000. So there's a huge budget impact doing it the way we do.
I have to say too that I was telling Lee, everyone I've talked to when they hear that Mike's retiring are so disappointed, and it's such a loss. I mean, I've been at meetings where teachers have come in and talked about in their 20-something years of teaching, he's the best superintendent they've ever worked for.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in front of the public in meetings. He just...
So all I'm going to say, I know people have shared my post on social media about the FOIA complaints and requests that I've made for records, and that the Board of Ed in Pomfret hasn't complied all the way. And I have filed some formal complaints. Now, the records person that I have to go through is our superintendent. So every time I make a FOIA request, which is the Freedom of Information Act, I make that through Mike, our superintendent. I also, for transparency purposes, always make sure Lee, as the chair, is on there. So they're both aware of what I'm requesting. Now, I have made a multitude of requests. My last request was, I think, last week, and I just got the fulfillment, and it was a partial fulfillment of the request I made back in the beginning of January. Now, you're supposed to do these requests, and you're supposed to fulfill the records promptly. I did it in the early January. In early February, when I followed up, I was told that Mike had the records, and he was having printer issues and issues with getting in because snow day, this, that. Then I followed up again in the beginning of March, and I'm being told that, oh, now they're being reviewed by the attorney. It wasn't anything that really needed to be reviewed by an attorney. There was nothing that should have been in there that was going to be giving up anything that a board member shouldn't be able to see. But okay, so I waited and waited and waited. And finally, after I filed a complaint, and it's going through the complaint process, because now you're withholding documents, let's be real. Now, I finally got a partial fulfillment. There are things missing in there. I have audio from meetings talking about a specific topic, that those things are not records in the pile of stuff that I got. And the stuff that I got is very troubling. I have not done anything publicly with it yet, but I will say I have 416 pages is what they sent me so far, and which led me to my follow-up request. And it's very troubling. Like, let's be real. They're not doing things by the book. And it's very, very clear in this documentation that I received. So as far as Mike as a superintendent, I'm sure he did a wonderful job for the teachers and the people that he's appealing to. But as far as someone on the board who is requesting records that I have a right to see, and as a citizen and a parent, I'm sorry, it's not good to be withholding those documents, and it's actually against the law according to FOIA. And when I have my hearings with the Board of Ed, when they come up from the complaints that I have filed so far, I will definitely keep you guys posted on that, because it is not all right for what they have done and how they have treated me, or even how they've talked about me in emails that I've received in some of these record requests. So just want to put that out there. Everybody can have a different opinion. It's okay if one teacher that's been there 20 years loves him, because he's definitely for the teachers and for passing whatever budget they want. And it seems like, to me, on a personal behalf, Lee is the same way. Those two have this relationship that is for the teachers and for the admin and for other people, but it's not for the citizens and it's not for the students, number one. So I just want to make that very, very, very clear from my personal opinion.
Has his ease, and he's very responsive, and he's just a great overall.
4 months for records is not responsive
It
in my
certainly
book.
sounds like, it's going to be a loss. When is Mike effectively stepping down? Is it
June
particularly
30th,
June
the end of
30th?
the year.
So that's sort of the timeline. Now, do you think that you're going to end up with an interim superintendent, or are you looking to try
Good
and
question.
hire somebody by
I
that
think
deadline?
I think we'll have someone. I think there will be someone who'll be able to interact there. I can't talk about the search, but
Would you be able to confirm if there's a search firm you're working with, or
I
Okay.
can't talk about the search.
They don't have a search firm.
I'm very confident that it's going to resolve well given where we are, but I can't talk about any specifics.
fully understand and respect that? You know, there are some other things too that we can talk about going on in the town of Pomfret. A couple of things going on Nora Lane, quite busy over there. Let's talk about bulky waste station and how things have been coming along with that, Maureen.
Oh, it's great. I think residents really, really like it. We had a record turnout in our April bulky waste days. The May dates are the 8th and 9th. We moved it back from the first weekend because this weekend is the townwide tag sale. So
Tag sale,
folks wanted to have an option if they didn't sell their stuff on the front lawn.
I think
They
that was
could
a good
take it to
move.
bulky waste
Definitely a good
the
move.
next weekend. So, but we're always improving what we take at bulky waste. We're adding new things to collect to be recycled. We're moving into small cylinders. We've got our oil container over there now to take used oil. We're going to take paint in the near future. So we're adding all of these things on there to help residents get rid of not only bulky waste, but other kinds of difficult things to recycle or to trash.
Do you want to talk about Putnam's role?
Putnam, we're partnering with Putnam. So Putnam uses the facility the third Saturday, 12 times a year. This year, Pomfret's going to be open 10 days, and it's Friday and Saturdays, and some months it's just Saturday. The schedule is posted on the website. But we reduced costs that way by reducing the number of days that we're open. And we're sharing costs with the town of Putnam, obviously. But it's a great resource for folks, and they really enjoy it. And we don't open it in the winter because it would cost us more to have to plow the facility on a weekend that we're also trying to plow our roads with a very limited road crew. So
Gotcha. So bulky
Does
waste,
Putnam
big
plow it during
success,
the
and
winter,
more
or
to
do
come
they not
on
use it
that.
in the
Yeah.
winter?
Also on
Question I
Nora
have.
Lane, it's been moving through the local zoning process. The application when it comes to NECOG, and right now what got approved, as I recall, is just for the changing of
Text
the
amendment.
definition of the zone.
it's the text amendment that NECOG applied for to change
Central Village
what was
District.
allowed
Or
in those three
the
very
commercial village
small
district.
commercial village districts. The facility would be allowed in other districts in town, but it just wasn't in the language for those three spots. But I know there's some concern about taking it off the grand list or hypothetical
No taxes to Pomfret
evaluations of the property. The property has been vacant for years.
because it was overpriced for years.
It hasn't been farmed in 3 years. It's 9 acres, and taxes that are collected on that piece of property annually are $112.
That's because the owners have a
So,
special tax rate that
if
not every
something
owner
were
would
to come
get.
into town, it certainly
So-
hasn't happened to date.
It didn't happen to date because it
And
was overpriced. I'm a real
there's
estate
no
broker,
telling
guys,
whether
first and
it would
foremost.
in the next
Properties sit for
2
one
years,
reason.
15 years, or
Most of
20
the time,
years,
and
it could
it's
be sitting vacant, and the
overpriced.
town would be collecting $112 a year. So NECOG is looking to upgrade their facility, animal services facility,
Biggest in the
which
state.
is woefully out of date in Dayville. So they want to enlarge the facility and make it safer, cleaner, bigger, and a better facility for the
Money,
animals that they're
but not for Pomfret.
taking in.
You know, we did also hear, like you mentioned, some concerns about lost revenue, et cetera, property values. People have brought up concerns about noise, concerns about traffic, concerns about smells, all sorts of different things. I don't know if there's any of that you wanted to respond to, Maureen.
I'd love
Yeah.
to. That's reaching at straws, basically. The facility
You're
would be
reaching at
on 9
straws.
acres. It's surrounded in the back.
Tell that to Kristen,
southeast corner
who has a
by
property
town
right over
land,
there.
open land,
that she's reaching at straws.
forested land.
That's
it's
rude,
right across the
Maureen.
street from a
Even for you.
transportation facility. It's now going to be storage of trucks. It's on the same road as Paquette Electric and Hometown Storage. It is sort of a little industrial area. There is one resident at the end of the lane on Route 101, and I've spoken with them, and they don't have any problem with the location of the facility. In terms of lost revenue, any nonprofit could buy that land. It's not, we don't have control, the town
Any
doesn't have control who
nonprofit.
can come in and purchase that land.
So let's just give it to the
As
biggest
a
of its
member of the
kind
executive
regional
board of
animal
NECOG,
facility,
I think
service a
NECOG
bunch of towns right here in
does need
Pomfret
to look at
without a highway.
building a better facility because taking care of the animals that are
Maureen,
being
let's just say
neglected or
Jim Rivers came to
mistreated
your
in
meeting and
the
buttered
16
you up. Just
towns
say
and
that.
beyond is an important issue that a lot of people feel very passionate about. And I'm hoping that those are the folks that will support building a new facility that's bigger, cleaner, more space, and
More
can
money.
handle larger animals occasionally when that
profits.
does happen. Because if it happens now where we have to take in horses that
You
have
see what
been
you don't hear?
neglected, they
You
have
don't
to be
hear
boarded somewhere.
The
and it's
benefit to
expensive.
Pomfret.
Oh,
Like they don't
absolutely.
have
We're
a
gonna
good
take another
argument.
commercial break at this point. We're taking your calls, and
They do not have an argument for any benefit to Pomfret. Like none. Literally, she's saying you're grasping at straws if you care about the noise, the smells, or the traffic. You're grasping at straws. If you don't like that it's taking it off our tax base, well, a nonprofit could have bought it, or they're paying, the current people have a special tax rate, so they're paying not much in taxes. Like, those are not reasons. I want to hear the benefit to Pomfret, not the reasons why you don't care about the people that are asking these questions, because that's clear. But what is the benefit of having the largest of its kind in the state regional animal facility here? Besides Jim Rivers coming to your meeting and telling you how wonderful you are and how Republicans run up to him and say, you're great, Maureen.
anything Pomfret related you want to talk about? Good morning and welcome back to the WINY Talk Show. I'm your host, John Mahan, and we have our guest from the town of Pomfret on with us. We have about 8 minutes left, and there's still some topics that we'd like to go over for sure. And there's a couple of different ordinances that are being proposed that have been moving along through the local process. Maureen, I think one of them is a firefighter tax abatement ordinance, correct?
Right, yes, the Board of the Board of Selectmen approved that. I think it has to go forward to the Board of Finance, and then it will be on the call of the annual town meeting. It was an ordinance to increase the tax abatement for firefighters from $1,000 to $2,000, and that's by state statute, and the town hasn't done that. It's been available to our volunteers for the last couple of years, but we haven't acted that. So Fire
About
Chief
time.
Brett
Glad
Sheldon
that they're
came to
doing
us and asked that we put that into place. So that's what we're working on.
And I think the other ordinance being proposed, right, is an election ordinance?
That's right. It's an election ordinance proposed by one of our citizens to change the way we vote for the Board of Selectmen. So
very
right now
confusing
you
currently.
vote for the First Selectman and you vote for the Board of Selectmen. So you have two votes. This change in the language would allow our voters to have three votes. So they could vote for all three seats on the Board of Selectmen. And then minority representation would come into play if, say, all three persons elected were of the same party. Then they, it would weed out.
Other towns around us do it
So
that
you
way.
would have
So
minority representation.
it's
And
a good
ultimately,
request.
for these ordinances to pass, they'd have to be approved at what, a town meeting?
Yes,
Gotcha.
they will be on the call of the town meeting.
And would this be the same town meeting that the budget would be addressed at? Would it be a separate town meeting, do you think? Or-
I'm not sure yet. We need approval. We need language approval from our town attorney. So
Gotcha.
if that's completed, then we can do that.
As First Selectman, Maureen, do you have any feelings on either or both of these proposals in terms of if you think they're good things for the town of Pomfret, or your personal thoughts?
I think, it's harder and harder to get volunteers for a volunteer fire department. So if this helps with recruitment or retention, I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
It's a small investment for a big payback because they're, actually, at some point, we'll probably have to go to a paid fire department, and that will be very costly. So if we can keep our volunteers with us for a few more years, that would be great for the town.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We won't be coming back here to discuss a budget issue.
Oh, absolutely. And it's tough for any fire department in any town to find volunteers. Taft Pond Bridge closure, that's ongoing right now, right, Maureen?
Yes, the detour route is set up now. There's some discussion about the coffering dams for the way they're diverting water, which has delayed the actual start for a couple weeks. But I'm sure that that's going to pick up pretty soon because they only have a limited amount of time to finish that construction period, 244 days.
Wow. Okay. And there's an audit presentation coming up in either May or June, right?
Yes, yep. We are a little behind on our audit
We're very
because
behind on
our
our
town
audit.
treasurer retired, and we
We've
had
gone through
some
3 treasurers.
transition period time that delayed us in putting all of our figures together. There was some communication issues there, so I think we're on track now to get our audit done by the end of the detention period, which is the end of June.
Gotcha.
I also want to point out that we have 7 available seats on our boards and commissions. We have a pretty good
7 available seats.
participation by our residents in town. We've got 79 possible seats. It's probably more than that. And we have 7 available seats. We have a seat on the Blight Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, Economic Planning Development, Inland Wetlands and Watercourses, and the Conservation Commission. So if Pomfret residents are interested in getting involved,
Depending on who you are, they will welcome you guys with open arms.
Some information on Pomfret's America 250.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Pomfret, like everyone else in the country, is going to be celebrating the 250th anniversary. So there are quite a few programs that are being sponsored by and organized by the Pomfret Historical Society. And those programs include fireside chats. They have speakers as well as music programs at the old townhouse. And in early October, they're going to actually be doing a reenactment.
Oh, very cool.
So they're quite right. It's going to be very exciting. October 3rd,
2nd through 3rd.
2nd and 3rd, we'll have a reenactment happening at the Pomfret Recreation Park.
Oh, excellent. Here, let's talk a little bit too about the plan of conservation development. We have just a few minutes left, but
POCD.
I think what is it? Once every 10 years? Is it 5 years?
It's every 10 years.
10
10
years.
years.
Yeah.
So the next meeting of the Plan of Conservation and Development Steering Committee is on May 16th
May
at the
16th.
Community Center at 6 o'clock. We're really looking for folks to come out and participate. It's a plan for the future of the town for the next 10 years. So if folks are concerned about where the direction is for Pomfret,
This
that's
kills
the
me.
place to be.
Gotcha. Can you kind of go over some of the things that the plan of conservation and development considers? I imagine it would be everything from farmland to roads to zoning. It's a very broadly encompassing sort of a document, isn't it?
It's very important. It's a very important specification for
Not according to
future
planning and
development and
zoning.
future grants.
Planning and zoning last week did not say this was very important. They actually were talking down about it because people were questioning whether the regional animal facility, the largest in the state, fit into Pomfret's POCD plan for the next 10 years. Like, where does that fit in? And they were basically saying, like, this is not a constitution, like, it's a guide, but like downplaying it. So to say now that it's very important and we have a meeting and we want people to come, and I've heard her say before in a Board of Selectmen meeting that they don't want to hear people complaining that the town isn't going in the direction they want when they don't show up and voice this. But we had more people voice against the regional animal facility, and they still voted to make the text amendment to let that come down the works. So I'm sorry, what you're saying here isn't matching what you're doing currently.
Items have to be listed in the POCD in order to qualify for a lot of grant funding.
So they just do it for grant funding, guys.
Road repairs, bridge replacements.
Road repairs. But we have that baked into
we
our
also
budget.
want to look at our zoning regulations.
Zoning regulations.
How our town
They're going to
is
change the
zoned
zoning
is
and
a
then match it with the
critical piece we're
POCD
finding.
after. That's what we heard at Planning and
And
Zoning.
I think we might have a caller, Maureen. So
Okay.
let's see if we can get that call. Good morning. You are on the air.
Hey, good morning, John. I was wondering if I could just throw some things out there and just let the leaders answer it at the end.
Sure. We're tight on time, so if you just make the question
Okay.
quick, please.
Yeah, so I got a couple. So as far as the Board of Education budget, before we eliminate 2 teachers, why won't the Board of Ed consider eliminating the assistant principal of a social worker? So another issue is, when is
So I'm gonna pause this for a sec. So what you hear right now is a citizen who has been very active. He's gone to all the meetings. He's paying close attention. What I'm seeing visually on my computer screen while he's talking. So you heard John Mahan say, we're going to take a caller. He hears the caller's voice and he knows who this caller is because this caller has called in many times and has very valid questions that the town leaders don't want to answer. So as soon as he hears who it is, and because he's not on the agenda platform that these three are, John Mahan tells him, like, we're very tight on time, like, ask your question quickly. And then when he starts asking his very valid question, Lee Grossman starts laughing and shaking his head. Noreen's laughing. They're sitting there literally laughing at him and his question, his very valid question, that he's not the only citizen with this question. You just said you have 7 seats open in our town and you want volunteers and you're not getting participation, but you have someone calling in to participate and you have an option to communicate and create this two-way dialogue, and you're being rude and you're laughing at him. Okay, I can't wait to hear how the rest of this goes. I know how it goes because I got a text message when this person got hung up on by WINY. So I know how it kind of goes, but I didn't hear the conversation. So let's see the rest. But I just wanted you guys to know the laughing and the rude behavior of these leaders right now to the citizen that has valid questions.
Board member is going to talk to Rectory School and Pomfret School about paying their fair share of the taxes to special ed and to educate the students.
So I'm going to pass your question along. We're very tight on time. We have about a minute. So let's do one at a time.
Why did you
so
take the call,
possibility of eliminating an assistant principal instead of teachers. Any response to that?
There are legal requirements that we can't, but we need to eliminate where we can actually make a change there. They wouldn't actually, even if hypothetically we're going to, eliminating that job wouldn't save a lot of money because the person in that job has bumping privileges and they would be able to go to a teaching job. So you'd lose all of the analytics role that we're getting while not actually saving a lot of money.
And then very quickly, just have about 15 seconds left. But the other thing about Pomfret and Rectory School, are they paying their fair share, so to speak? I think was his question with special education. I don't know much about how that works, but
No, they're not obligated to pay for special education.
Okay.
No, they have students, but both Pomfret and Rectory School have some students that come to our schools, but also they take some schools out of our stream of students that we're not paying for. So there is a plus and minus situation there, but you know, I
would love more details on
intentions to meet with the new headmistresses of both schools to talk about our relationship with them. But
wait to
I
hear about
really
that
want
one.
folks to understand that it's a give and take situation.
and we're unfortunately all out of
Okay.
time. But thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming on this morning. Stay tuned.
What a joke. John Mahan, why did you even take a caller if that you had 15 seconds? Like, come on, like, let's all be real here. You didn't. You just heard who the caller was and your bias, and this is a biased news station, and you just didn't want to answer the question. Like, these 3 people right now have an opportunity. They have a golden opportunity to answer to the people of Pomfret who they serve, and they just blew it by laughing at him, shaking their head, rushing him off, and hanging up on him. So I'm sorry, embarrassment. This is my reaction to this meeting. What do you guys think? Do you think it was good? What did you like? What did you not like? What do you think we need to do better? What did you learn? And what would you like to learn? We're never going to stop asking questions, guys. So I'm going to definitely make sure that I put some of the images or even the video of them laughing when he asked his question so you guys can see exactly what I saw and what I was talking about. I'll make sure to put my letter that me and Martha wrote so you can see, because they did say we can send that letter over to the budget people and they're going to look at it if you can't make it tonight. So I'm going to send that to them, see what happens, and I'm going to report back to you guys. So thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great day.